any of the things they had done. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. Mark and I was going to do something today, but just didn't seem appropriate, did it, Mark? I was going to wear my white robe, and he was going to put a big spotlight over my head. Mark and I is going to get in trouble before I get out of here. Can you believe it? It's already Transfiguration Day. So what does this mean for us? On this day, Jesus asked those 3 disciples if they would go with him up on the mountain to pray. Wouldn't you, if Jesus asked you to go up there? Even though the 3 went with him, they were not particularly good company. Would you? There on the mountain, as Jesus prayed, the appearance of his face changed. And then his clothing became radiant. So white it almost blinded their eyes. I am not sure how would I have felt. But this was just the beginning. Suddenly 2 men joined Jesus out of nowhere. And the disciples sensed that the 2 were Moses and Elijah. The 2 began to talk to Jesus and talk about what would soon happen to him. Well, as people of the day would say, awesome, awesome. If this didn't fill the onlookers with awe, there'd have to be something wrong with them. And Luke tells us that there was indeed something wrong with Peter, James, and John. They were tired. They were exhausted. They could hardly keep awake. The Common English Bible puts it, Peter and those with him were almost overcome by sleep. But they managed to stay awake. This could have been a cartoon strip. You know, Jesus' face is so radiant as the full sun. How beautiful it is outside now. His garments are as if they were on fire. There's a conversation between Jesus, Moses, and Elijah. And Peter is trying to stifle a yawn. There is no fit comparison, but it is whatever, as if on the right night of the Academy Awards. You know, an actor whose name has just been called to receive the award for Best Leading Actor of the Year, to be awakened up to go up and get his Oscar. Probably most of us have been asleep several inappropriate times, but surely nothing like this. Surely not when the Lord has selected you from all of the disciples to be with him in a climatic hour, and you find yourself in the company of perhaps the 2 greatest characters of the Old Testament, listening in on a private, privileged conversation, and you can't stay awake. Come on, wake up! Eventually, Peter recovered enough to say something. What he said was not too appropriate, but if I were John and James, I'd be happy for Peter just to stumble in before I became guilty of saying something stupid as well. Well, Peter meant okay. Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Luke tells us that Peter meant well. I guess we should be glad he was awake. And while Peter was still speaking, a cloud overshadowed him. So like we do here when the fog rolls in. And then they heard a voice from heaven announcing that Jesus was God's Son and that they should listen to him. And just that suddenly, the 3 disciples were once again alone with Jesus, speechless. Speechless. And Jesus told them to tell no one what they had experienced. They had been given a preview of Easter and had seen that Jesus was more than their beloved teacher and more than someone who could just heal the sick. Indeed, they had seen that Jesus was more than just the next leader of Israel, though in truth, this realization didn't seem to get through to them at all. If they had just grasped what they were seeing that day, they would have been fortified for the time just ahead when Jesus was arrested, put on trial, and crucified. They would have realized that no earthly power would be able to defeat Jesus. And they were on the edge of glory. And they could hardly keep away. Ask yourselves, how could they have been that tired? We probably can conclude for some reason or another, Peter, James, and John simply didn't realize that they were on the verge of such awesome experience. Even though they kept awake, they still didn't grasp the significance of the event until sometime later. Probably not until long after the day of Pentecost. And perhaps far into their apostolic ministry, when they began to comprehend the full wonder of Jesus the Christ, the Son of God. We can't put ourselves fully into the experience of these people. Some of us have been blessed to know a person who has attained some very worthy achievements. You know, in literature, music, business, or even in sports. I had such an opportunity when I attended seminary in Batterville, Kentucky. I met a man by the name of J. Ellsworth Capps. He was upheld as one of the greatest writers and theologians of our times by other teachers and of those who went on to having a doctorate in theology. Another great instructor I had was Lawrence Hall Stuckey. He too was held in a high regard by other teachers and theologians. And if you look at your own hymnal, look at 69, 201, 323, 461, just to name a few. There's a whole bunch more. He also wrote books on Eucharist and baptisms, to name just a few books. And if you remember the Paul Stuckey, the singer, Peter, Paul, and Mary, you remember them? He was their Paul's uncle. I wonder about some Illinois lawyers years ago who argued cases against Abraham Lincoln, who couldn't have dreamed that someday somebody would name a city after him. After that fellow lawyer and his pictures would be hung up on the wall in many classrooms throughout our country. And yes, becoming the President of the United States. Years ago, a major journalist of the period, Jerome Allison, told the story of a spiritual pilgrimage in a book titled Report to the Creator. His entire story is moving, but today we might ponder in particular what happened to Allison when he was just a little boy. It was an average Sunday in a small town church like this. But that Sunday, the boy had somehow been touched by the presence of God. He went outside to where a group of men from the church were chatting. Because he had just had such a sense of reality of God, he thought everyone had experienced the same awesome reality. To his surprise, the men were talking about things like work, sports, their crops. The boy was so shocked because he had been on the very edge of glory. And these men hadn't experienced it at all. Not a bit. So here's the question on this Sunday of Transfiguration. A question for all of us. Is it possible that some Sundays you and I are on the very edge of glory and don't know it? And for those of you who begin every day with some devotional exercise, it probably seems fairly routine most of the time. Some days you find it hard to concentrate. And sometimes, in truth, you almost fall back asleep. But could it be that you are on some mountain with the Lord, and that you're on the very, very edge of glory? You know as well as I do, God is always at work in our lives. But you and I fall asleep so easily. All the things of life preoccupies us. It isn't necessarily bad stuff, but just that it occupies us so much that we grow dull in the greatest things. We could be on the edge of a miracle from God, where for just a moment the glory of eternity is revealed. And you know what we miss. Could this morning be such a time? Please, God, if it is so, save us from sleeping through your glory. Amen. On the verge of glory. Very good.